Hey, everybody. Yes, I'm on an hour late. Somebody around here is sucking up my bandwidth. So we're going to see how this works tonight because I think I was a little glitchy last time. Let's just give everybody a minute to get in here and get settled. Remember, the best way to support your streamers is to share, and it's absolutely free. So we would really appreciate if you do that. We've got a really fun one with you tonight for you tonight. And I think that even though that was a really interesting one we covered a little earlier, or my first show, this is going to start getting us geared up for spooky season. We're going to be talking about occult places, the occult and cult places. So if that is your jam, I think you're really going to enjoy this one tonight. So come on in. If you're new, let us know that you're new and where you're from, because we always love new victims here in the crypt. And let's go ahead and see who all is in here. Looks like I've got John. And John, let's see, he says, my eyes are going. It happens when you're, a corpse. He says, hi, mother. Let's see, great to see you again. Well, it's great to see you too, John. Thank you so much for popping in. We've got Nadine, and she says, hello, guys. How are you? Hey, Nadine. Then we've got Alan. Alan, he says, hello, hello, hello. And then we've got Frank. It said, did someone say crack? We will be talking about crackery and kookery tonight. So I'm sure to insert that crack into what we're going over tonight. So just hang on to your crack, and we'll be talking about crack. And we have Chris in the house. Hello, Chris. So glad to see you here. Um, have you been here before? I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, yes. And Frank says, but you got to watch out for those new dentists with the hook for the claw for the thumb. So, yeah, those, you got to watch out for those. John says, I am ready to get into creepy Halloween mode or mood. Yes, me too. We have already started with our scary movies and things like that and getting ready. So let's go ahead. It looks like let's give everybody another minute, um, and then we'll get started. Is the music too loud? Thought I'd add a little something tonight. So get settled, send out your shares, and we will get started here in about 30 seconds. Share, share, share. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me know if I'm too loud. I think I've got everything set pretty good. All right. So what tonight we're going to be talking about is the occult and really the mystery of occult locations. We're going to be exploring a couple of different locations. Um, so that's why I called it Unveiling the Veil. So an entire world that surrounds us and influences us, but of which we are mostly or only dimly aware. So just to kind of give you an overview of the word occult, and kind of the practices and the thoughts and things like that that go behind it. The occult, in popular imagination, the occult is connected to all things supernatural, magical, or mystical. The term occult itself simply means concealed or hidden, specifically hidden from sight. The big question is, what is hidden? The answer is vast. And the occult involves not just belief or practices, but entire world that surrounds us and influences us, but which, like I said, we are mostly dimly aware. Or some of us are. Some of us are a little bit more, we perceive it a little easier than say, some others. Now, above all, the occult is a state of mind. which is to say, a state of reality. Occultism does have rules, or at least some guidelines. The occult believes in the principles of interconnectedness and vitality, expressed through the mantra, as above, so below. It emphasizes that everything is connected and reflects each other. In the occult verse, there are no accidents or coincidences. Every action has meaning, and the laws of attraction and similarity state that like attracts like, and resemblance indicates a deeper connection. Now, the law of opposites highlights how apparent opposites are actually only different aspects of the same thing. The occult sees morality as independent on intent rather than inherent good or evil. The underlying and unifying basis of magic is about putting energy into something, a thought, an object, or a person, or taking energy out. Now, the same can be true about occult places. Now, on September 5th of 1922, at 10:45 p.m., Sarah Lockwood Winchester quietly passed away. The death was not due to disease which had taken her infant daughter on July 25th of 1866, nor was it caused by tuberculosis which had taken her husband in 1881. Nor was she the victim of any ghost reported to inhabit her sprawling mansion, which she had been building, dismantling, and rebuilding over the past few decades. Sarah's death was simply due to age and heart failure at the ripe old age of 83. In 1884, Sarah Winchester purchased what would later be known as the Winchester Mystery House. At the time of sale, the house was a small, unfinished farmhouse, but that quickly changed. There was no plan, no official blueprints were drawn up, and no architectural vision was created that any of us really know of. Winchester hired carpenters to work around the clock, expanding the small house into a seven-story mansion. Due to the lack of plan and the presence of an architect, the house was constructed haphazardly. Rooms were added onto exterior walls, resulting in windows overlooking other rooms. Multiple staircases would be added, all with different size risers, giving each staircase a distorted look. Stranger so was the fact that many of the alterations seemed to be pointless. Staircases would ascend several levels, then end abruptly. Doors would open to solid walls, and hallways would turn a corner and end in a dead end. By the turn of the century, it had an oddly laid out mansion with 7 stories, 161 rooms, 47 fireplaces, 10,000 panes of glass, 2 basements, 3 elevators, and a mysterious funhouse-like interior. Now, obviously, Sarah Winchester was an unusual woman, and the house was an unusual place. Alfred Watkins was an English businessman and amateur archaeologist who developed the idea of ley lines. The idea of leys as straight tracks across the landscape was put forward by Watkins in 1920, particularly in his book, The Old Straight Track. He argued that straight lines could be drawn between various historical structures and that these represented trade routes created by ancient British societies. Watkins also sought to prove that mounds, moats, beacons, and markstones fall into straight tracks. For instance, sighted lines throughout Britain. Now, one example of this would, of course, be Stonehenge. The proposed function for this site include usage as an astronomical observatory or as a religious site. More recently, two major new theories have been proposed, suggesting that Stonehenge was a place of healing. The primeval equivalent of Loudres, France, which is basically a Catholic shrine to the Mother Mary, and considered a sacred location, arguing that this accounts for the high number of burials within the area for the evidence of deformities in some of the graves. However, they do concede that the site was probably multifunctional and was used for ancestral worship as well. Archaeologists in general do not, however, accept Watkins' idea on lays. Archaeologists note that there is no evidence that ley lines were a recognized phenomenon among ancient European societies, and that attempts to draw them typically rely on linking together structures that were built in different historical periods. Archaeologists and statistics have demonstrated that a random distribution of a significant number of points on a plane will inevitably create alignments of random points purely by chance. So it's just going to happen by chance. Skeptics have also stressed that the esoteric idea of Earth energies running through ley lines has not been scientifically verified, remaining simply an article of faith for its believers. However, and Frank, are you ready? However, before we write off Watkins as a crack, keep in mind the Earth does swirl with electromagnetic currents between the poles. These telluric currents, or what is referred to as earth current, is an electric current that flows underground like rivers. They will flow through seas, resulting from natural and human-induced causes. These currents are extremely low frequency and traverse large areas near or at the Earth's surface. Now, the Earth's crust and mantle are also host to telluric currents, primarily geomagnetically induced currents caused by changes in the Earth's magnetic field. Even though these telluride currents are very low frequency, they are not undetectable. It is theorized that insects, birds, and other animals use these currents to navigate. So the question is, can they also influence humans without us really being aware? It is also now not out of speculation that these very low-powered currents could be amplified or concentrated, much like the ideas of Nikola Tesla. Tesla's long-held dream was to create a source of inexhaustible, clean energy that was free for everyone. He believed that the Earth had fluid electrical charges running beneath its surface that, when interrupted by a series of electrical discharges at repeated set intervals, this would generate a limitless power supply by generating immense low-frequency electrical waves. One of Tesla's most extraordinary experiments was to transmit electrical power over long distances without wires or cable, a feat that has still baffled scientists ever since. But let's return back to Sarah Winchester's story. Born Sarah Pardee in 1839, she was an American heiress who amassed great wealth after the death of her husband, William Wirt Winchester. Her inheritance included a $20 million, which would be equivalent to $606.5 million in 2002's standards, or 2022, I'm sorry, as well as 50% holding in the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, which made her one of the wealthiest women in the world at the time. Sarah and William wed on September 30th of 1862. In New Haven is where they wed. William Wirt Winchester was the only son of Oliver Winchester, the owner of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. Sarah and William had one daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester, who was born on July 15th of 1866, but unfortunately later died of it's kind of a genetic, I don't want to say if you want to call it disease, uh, but it went by the reference of marasma. Now, this was a condition causing her to slowly starve to death. Now, in the span of 1 year, which would have been 1881, Sarah Winchester lost her mother, her father-in-law, and finally her husband, William, to tuberculosis, leaving her with a large, like I said, $20 million inheritance and ownership in half of that arms company. Again, making her one of the wealthiest women in the United States at the time. After this, she consistently wore black mourning clothes basically till the end of her life. Now, in 1886, she purchased a small two-story farmhouse and ranch in San Jose, California. The property was called Lalandia Villa, and I do apologize if I have mispronounced that. Lalandia Villa, and would later become known as the Winchester Mystery House. Sarah Winchester is best known for using her vast fortune to continue construction on the Winchester Mansion in San Jose for the next 22 years. Now, popular legend, which did begin during her lifetime, held that she was convinced she was cursed by the spirits of those that killed the Winchester rifle. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this particular story or legend, and that the only way to protect herself was to continually add to her California home. Now, within the home lies the seance or blue room. There's one entrance, but 3 exits, including a door that leads to a 10-foot drop-off into the kitchen and another that opens up to only a small sink. According to popular lore, Sarah Winchester retreated to this room every night between midnight and 2 a.m., and no one else was allowed in but her. What went on there? No one, however, is really sure, but some stories say she would communicate with the spirits. However, that really doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it. Why would a woman so concerned with nefarious or vengeful spirits try to communicate with them or even dabble in something like that if she was so fearful of these ghosts that inhabited her home? Now, again, Frank, I hope you're ready. Before we write Sarah off as an example of eccentric kookery or a crack, remember, or really just somebody that had lost their mind, you have to keep in mind that she still held half ownership and control of that arms company, the Winchester Repeating Rifle Company. And she did handle these affairs competently, not the actions of what one would consider a crazy person. So the only thing that we can come to conclude is she did what she did for a reason. Now, I don't know, and I've never really heard this covered a lot, and I got a lot of this information from the Great Courses Plus. So, there was a lot of information that I did learn, but it seemed that her real obsession was actually Sir Francis Bacon. Now, Francis Bacon was an English Renaissance statesman and philosopher, best known for his promotion of what is called the scientific method. It has also been widely theorized that Francis Bacon had created not only the Rosicrucians, but the Freemasons, secret societies, in England well before 1607. Was it really Sarah's interest in Rosicrucian and Freemason symbology and ideas that were really at play? That Sarah's blueprint was not simply gibberish, but the architectural encodement of Bacon's higher mathematic design to basically lead one or lead us to a higher level of consciousness. The house certainly incorporated the prime numbers 7, 11, and most notably 13 in its design. Windows had 13 panes, walls had 13 panels, chandeliers had 13 globes, etc., etc., etc. The number 13 is often seen as unlucky. The 13th card in the tarot is death. But the death card is not always seen as a bad thing, usually noting it is the death of a certain time or issue in one's life. It basically symbolizes change. The number 13 is also prominent in Sarah's will. It contains 13 sections, and she signed it 13 times. So why would a woman of such means purchase this particular area in San Jose when she could afford about any place she wanted to live? Well, it just so happens this plot of land lies slap dab in the middle of two telluric conversion points, a vortex, if you will. The house was also laid with miles of copper wiring to feed the many lights and telephones and electrical gadgetry that was in the house. But some wonder if all that wiring was actually used to collect and store energy. So it is not any surprise that the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum was built less than 2 miles from the Winchester Mystery House. The Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum, or referred to as REM, is devoted to ancient Egypt, and it is located at Rosicrucian Park in the Rose Garden neighborhood of San Jose, California, United States. It was founded by the ancient and mystical order Rosicrucius, or AMORC. The Rosicrucian order continues to support and expand the museum and its educational and scientific activities to this day. The museum holds the largest collection of ancient Egyptian antiquities in the western United States and is located next to the Rosicrucian headquarters. Let me go ahead and check and see what's going on in the comments, and then we're going to go to a commercial break. But we're next going to travel to ground zero of California high strangeness, a proverbial hotbed of the weird, and I'm sure you can guess, Los Angeles. More specifically, Hollywood. So let's see what's going on in the comments, and then we'll go to that break, and then we'll be back for the second half. So let's see what's going on. And Frank said the music was awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. We have Mike in the house. Hi, Mike. How are you? And then Frank says we're going to have one of our multiverse talks that lasts all night because Akia and myself are stoned at talking to us when we're stoned. It's like herding cats. Oh, I know. I know. It's a lot of fun though. And then PBDC is in the house. They say hello. Hello, 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 Mod. And then Akia says there is nothing small about that place now. No, it is not. And Akia says it's like MC Escher designed it. It is. It is. It's very unique. I would like to tour it eventually. I think it would be a lot of fun. And then John says that house is on his bucket list and wants to visit the house someday. You and me both. You and me both. And then Frank says, "Oh, we need to take you there, Odd Mother. It's awesome. Yes, I would love to go there. We're going to cover something else here in a minute, Frank, that we've got to add to that list. At least one place, which is actually a really big place. Most definitely. So Akash says, just be careful when you go for a walk out a door that's on the second floor. Yeah, because you never know where you may wind up. You may wind up a floor below in the kitchen. And Jennifer's here. Hello, Jennifer. So glad you are here. So glad you're here. And Purgatory's here. Hello, Purgatory. Thank you for coming in and joining us tonight. We've got a fun one tonight. And you can, if you missed any of it, you can always go back and hit hashtag replay. So Frank says, I bet putting those glass panes up was a pain. And he does say, thanks everyone for coming. That's the dad joke of the night. So. All right, I just want to make sure that I get everybody. Hey, Jolene, how are you? I'm so glad you stopped by. And thank you so much. I'm always like, when I see all your rooms, they're super cool. Let's see. I think we've just about got to the bottom. Yanada. Okay. Yanada is how you say it. Because you know me, that in French, I have a horrible time with. So Spanish and French, I have a really hard time with. I just can't get the tongue to roll right. I don't know. Let's see. And then we have Hellblazer 25 that's in here. Hello, hello. All right, let's see. Ooh, gracious. So many comments. I love when you guys are chatty. Love when you guys are chatty. And Kisa, hi Kisa. How are you? I am so glad you're here. Guys, please, if you're just coming in, please share out because that is the best and free. It's free. The best way to support your streamers. Yes, absolutely, Mike. Holly Weird. That is exactly where we're going. Got a lot of interesting stuff. Calvin. Calvin says, hotbed of the weird. We're going to Frank Leverger's. That is true. That is true. His is like the epiphany of the hotbed of high strangeness and weird. But we love him. We love them both. I wouldn't have it any other way. Hi, Raven. Hey, how are you doing? I thought I was at the end. Okay, and then last one, John says there was a movie about the house a few years ago, just called Winchester, and it was pretty good. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It kind of reminded me of, do you remember back, this was way back in the 2000s, like early 2000s, late 1990s, when Stephen King came out with Rose Red, and it was kind of this sort of the same idea, except I think this house built itself, and it was constantly building itself. But yeah, that's kind of what it reminded me of. And the last one, Frank says, yeah, we got a lot of weird stuff out here. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about it here in just a second. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and go to a commercial break, and then we will be right back. Where's my commercial break? There it is.
Occult Lunatic Asylum, case number 094. Dr. Mortimer Thornfield recording. Patient 04278, Stephen Peakity Cat. Often referring to himself as Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Diagnosis, Morbus Organizus Disorder, or MOD. Observation, patient exhibits an artistically delightful and disturbed mind. The patient's pursuit of selling t-shirts and merchandise that celebrate the macabre and the horrifying has led to the diagnosis of Morbus Organizus Disorder, a condition that melds artistic madness with a twisted appreciation for the darker side of cinema. Treatment plan being that the patient's products are of a perfect embodiment of their twisted artistic vision and the unique nature of the condition. Procurement of said merchandise is recommended.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
In the southeast of America, in the quiet town of Quinton, located in Walker County, Alabama, a nightmare is about to unfold. Two young friends embarking on a road trip, little did they know they were about to stumble upon a horrifying tale that would forever haunt their souls. They had no idea that their journey would lead them to the infamous Spook Trail family, deranged haunted maze makers known for their twisted ways and insatiable hunger to scare. But the question remains, will anyone make it out alive? Brace yourself, for the frights are about to begin.
Oakhurst Lunatic Asylum, case number 1972. Dr. Mortimer Thornfield recording. Patients 0489593 through 0489597, known as the Psycho Bunnies. Their true identities are unknown to me at this time. Diagnosis: Eccentricus malevolentis disorder, or EMD. The patients seem to have inclinations of a twisted and unconventional artistic talents, exhibiting a disconcerting combination of insanity, disorderliness, and a penchant for the macabre. Observation: their collective behavior and unyielding commitment to selling t-shirts and merchandise that revel in the darker aspects of existence have led to the diagnosis of eccentricus malevolentis disorder, a condition that merges artistic eccentricity with a delightfully wicked sense of humor. Treatment plan: the patient's relentless obsession with creating and selling t-shirts adorned with sinister slogans, macabre imagery, and morbid humor is a defining symptom of their condition. Therefore, procurement of said merchandise is recommended.
Now, back to the show.
Now, back to the show. All right. So you guys ready? Let me get back over to the comments real quick. All right. So like I said, we are going to now travel to ground zero of California's high strangeness. Like I said, a proverbial hotbed of the weird, Los Angeles, more specifically Hollywood. Two locations are beacons for high strangeness in this area is Griffith Park and the eastern edge of Simi Valley, particularly area around Santa Susana Pass. Now, Griffith Park is a large municipal park at the eastern end of the Santa Monica Mountains, in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. The park includes popular attractions such as the Los Angeles Zoo, the Autry Museum of the American West, Griffith Observatory, and of course the Hollywood sign, as well as being a popular recreational area. But it is also reported to be cursed and has more than its fair share of ghost stories and tragedies. Take, for instance, and this is the one I want to go see, the case of picnic table number 29. Now, it was October 31st of 1976 when tragedy literally befell a young Hollywood couple, inconceivably crushed by a nearby tree that toppled over on top of them while they made love upon a picnic table just off winding Mount Hollywood Drive. As lurid as inexplicable, the deaths of 22-year-old musician Rad Garrett and his aspiring actress girlfriend Nancy Jensen, 20, were nonetheless a brief blip on the radars of local newscasts and newspapers. What hasn't been so quickly to dissipate is the legend that has grown up around strange events and eerie occurrences, especially around the anniversary of their demise. As witnesses claims began happening shortly after their deaths and purportedly continue to occur to this day, fostering a belief that the anguished spirits of Rand and Nancy are wandering never too far away from the picnic table that simultaneously brought them together and tore them apart. Now, an attempt was made by a city tree trimmer named Carl to remove the fallen tree, but was quickly abandoned when the city worker reported that during his attempt, he reported hearing strange noises and screams, followed by the tree shaking violently to the point of actually knocking off like one of those big table saws, knocking one off the picnic table itself. His account goes on to say that when his supervisor, Dennis Higgs, found out about that the removal had been abandoned, Dennis himself took up the job. This would be the last time that Carl would see Higgs alive. The next morning, just after sunrise, a jogger heading uphill along Mount Hollywood Drive found a city vehicle idling with its headlights on and pointing at the fallen tree. Stopping to investigate, the jogger found Higgs flat on his back and not moving, a chainsaw by his side with the blade that had been bent into a U shape. Summoning help with the vehicle's radio, paramedics arrived shortly thereafter, but attempts to revive Higgs were unsuccessful. And I quote, "You know, the coroner listed the cause of death as a heart attack," Carl says, "but he died of fright. The fool's hair had gone completely white, and the paramedic who tried to bring him back told me Higgs had the most horrified expression frozen on his face, as if he had seen the devil." Now, the initial police investigation even suspected foul play after finding Higgs' hands injured and several fingernails broken in what looked to be a struggle against someone who dragged him from the side of the truck along the ground for more than 15 feet towards the damaged picnic table. Not someone, Carl insists, but something. And while whatever caused his supervisor's demise may be a matter of opinion, what is fact is that no attempt to take down that dead tree or remove that broken table has been made since. You can find it today. Now, could it have been the beast of Griffith Park? Whether it's a werewolf or a demon promised by Don Velez or a drug-induced hallucination, there is a creature within Griffith Park that has rumored to exist for over the past few decades. In October of 2005, 3 men allegedly retreated from a late-night excursion into the park after an encounter with a beast. Hold on just a second. With a beast that had green skin and red hair. Its legs were very long, as well as its feet, and it was taking huge strides as it made its way down the street. Its back was bent backwards, and its neck was very long and was bent forward. No human could be bent like this thing was. Its eyes were black, but it did have whites as well. Now, more recently, an 11-year-old boy named Jack wrote on the Weird California site that on a 2009 visit, he was chased by an unusually large coyote. Reaching the top of the hill, he saw another kid about his age and warned him about the coyote. "I'm quite glad you warned me," the kid told Jack, then handed him an old firecracker. "Here, take this. It's good luck." The kid then ran through some bushes and into a small path. Fearing the coyote, Jack tried to follow him, but never caught up, and never saw the kid or the coyote again. Now, besides vengeful ghosts and cryptids, Griffith Park has been the stomping ground of many a killer and the final resting place of many a victim. In the 1970s, it was the preferred dumping ground for the Hillside Stranglers. Every year, police are called to the massive wilderness park when unlucky hikers stumble upon bodies, anything from human heads to dismembered bodies. But the most well-known legend of Griffith Park is the curse that Donna Petronilla placed on the land in 1863. Petronilla was the teenage niece of wealthy land baron Don Antonio Velez, who found herself cut out of his will. She famously cursed the land, vowing it would never be profitable and that its owners would meet untimely or violent ends. The spooky thing about her curse is that it quickly became true. The man who negotiated the ranch's water rights was killed in a saloon. The land's new owner was murdered by a bandito in Mexico. Then along came Colonel Griffith J. Griffith. The wealthy industrialist bought 4,000 acres of the land known as Rancho Los Velez in the 1800s, but was plagued by natural disasters and misfortune. Some say it was the curse of Petronilla. Ultimately, he gifted the land to the city of Los Angeles, but couldn't quite escape the curse. He wound up shooting his wife during a drunken rampage at a hotel in Santa Monica. She did survive, but he was sent to San Quentin to serve 2 years thanks to an alcoholic insanity defense. He was released from prison and died from liver disease. In the end, the curse of Donna Petronilla was fulfilled. The land's owners died ignoble and violent deaths. And, gifted to the people, Griffith Park is not making anyone rich, as Donna Petronilla vowed it never would. Still, some believe the ghost of Petronola is not satisfied with the fulfillment of her bloody curse. Her vengeful ghost is said to haunt the land, a lady in a white dress appearing to hikers and visitors over the years. Of all the supposed ghost sightings reported over the years, the lady in white is one apparition who appears more than any other. For many, it's appropriate that she would haunt the park because she's the one that famously cursed it. But according to folklore, Petronilla is not alone in haunting the hills. Actress Peg Entwistle, who infamously leapt to her death from the H on the Hollywood sign in 1932. She is said to startle hikers and appearing in all her 1930s Hollywood glory. In 2002, Griffith Park Chief Ranger told the LA Times, and I quote, "If you knew even a quarter of the stuff we find within the park's perimeter, you would never set foot in it again. Anything from animal sacrifices, satanic cults, murders, prostitution, etc., etc. With stuff like that happening on a regular basis, it makes ghosts look like good times." Now, it would also be of no surprise that Griffith Park is also said to sit on a whirlpool of telluric energy that flows like rivers and streams into the surrounding areas. To the east lies Arroyo Seco and the Devil's Gate Reservoir. Besides alleged Native American legends of it being a gateway to the afterlife, it was once the site of occultic rituals during the 1940s and mysterious disappearances of children in the 1950s. It derived its name long ago from a rocky outcrop along the Arroyo Seco that resembled the profile of a head of a horned figure. During the late 1930s and into the 1940s, Jack Parsons, one of the principal co-founders of the JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, was a pioneer rocket scientist and passionate occultist and leader of the Thelema movement in Southern California. He conducted occult rituals near Devil's Gate Dam to invoke the god Pan. He believed the area to have some sort of mystical significance. His rituals, some which were also conducted with the future founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, were believed to by some to have opened a portal to hell. Now, to the west of Griffith Park lies the site of the original Theophysicist colony called Kratoa, originally located at Primrose and Vista Del Mar, where it was originally erected in 1919. The Theosophy is a religion established in the United States during the late 19th century. It was founded primarily by the Russian Helena Blavatsky, and it draws its teachings predominantly from her writings. Categorized by scholars of religion as both a new religious movement and as part of the occult stream of Western esotericism, it draws upon both older European philosophies such as Neoplatonism and Indian-originated religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism. It also is worth noting that Griffith Park is flanked on two sides by the giant Forest Lawn Cemetery. Now let's talk about Santa Susana Pass. Now, of course, it is best known for the former Spawn Ranch. Spawn Ranch, also known as the Spawn Movie Ranch, was a large movie ranch in Los Angeles County, California. It was used for filming mostly old Western movies and television programs. And its most notably was the home of convicted murderer, or what we all know as cult leader, Charles Manson and his followers from the mid-1968 until their arrest in October of 1969. There in the desert foothills of the Santa Susana Mountains, cult leader Charles Manson established a polygamous community where he prophesied that he was the second coming of Christ, that the Beatles were his prophets, and that a violent race war was imminent. 2 years later, in the summer of 1969, the group's collective psychosis reached its macabre peak, with family members slaying 7 people over the course of 2 nights, including Hollywood starlet Sharon Tate, who was married to director Roman Polanski and weeks away from giving birth. So the central question is whether the phenomenon under scrutiny that we have talked about is merely a collection of coincidences and overactive imagination, or if there exists a concealed element, perhaps an occult interlocking principle. But now that you have a sense of what to investigate, are you actively exploring? Have you made any discoveries now that you know what to look for? Or could it be something might just find you? So I hope you like that. We ended a little early, but that gives me time to go over the comments. And the Santa Susana Pass, especially right around the area of the former Spawn Ranch, is really interesting. If you like this kind of dark history, look into that area because there were several cults in this area. Like way back, way back. There's been several that pretty much like Manson almost like monikered what they were saying. They were all into the world cults. Even a Krishna cult that was located there well before the Mansons. So it's really worth looking into that area. It's got a lot of really weird happenings. And I've only touched on a few. Like there is so much going on in this area that I could only touch on a few to keep it under like a 2-hour program, or so that I didn't go 2 hours. So let's see what's going on in the comments. Let's see. Let me try to get back to where I was. You guys have been talking. Okay, so Mike Stevens asked, because I know we were talking about Rose Red. Never heard of that one. Was it good? Yeah, it was really good. It was a little spooky. But like with Stephen King, the books are always better. I read the book before the miniseries came out on TV. And the miniseries wasn't bad. But the book is definitely a read, especially if you're a Stephen King fan. It's definitely worth a read. Yes, and so Frank says Spook Trail. Yes, and we absolutely want to thank Spooks and Spook Trail for being one of our sponsors this season. Really cool place, and from what I understand, they have a PBDC Doom Room. So if you guys, get a chance to check that out, make sure to look for that for the PBDC Doom Room. So we were very, very humbled by that and really thank them a lot. They're great people, really great people. And then Kisa says Savannah is a spooky part of Georgia. Yes, Savannah is very cool. But I have to say, out of the two locations that I like, and I am a Georgia native, and like I said, Savannah is very cool. Because there is a lot of history there. And it reminds you a lot of New Orleans in a lot of ways, just kind of how it's laid out and kind of the minus kind of the party feel. It's just got that oldness to it. But I think New Orleans is probably my favorite. But Savannah is very cool. Never seen so many people in those old cemeteries. Either you died of yellow fever or you fell in the river. I mean, like that seemed like at least the two cemeteries that we went to, the mass majority of the residents of that cemetery either fell in the river or died of yellow fever. But it is a very cool place and very haunted. And then Kisa says, let's see if it'll pop up. There it goes. My stuff's running slow. Kisa says, next or near my house, we have a small witch's graveyard. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. I know we had I don't know really what you would call her. Like some people refer to her as a witch, but a lot of people refer to her as a medium and a healing person. But there was a lady by the name of Mahalia, um, in kind of the area that I'm in now, and her grave is somewhere around here, but you're not allowed to go there. Like they, from what I understand, even have like the trail cams and stuff to keep people away from that area. I forget her last name. Exus. So we said devil, and guess who pops in the house? Speak of the devil. Hey, hey. Let's see. Oh, and so John is talking about the beast of Griffith Park. He says it sounds like a rake. Yeah, and the really neat thing about it is like if you look into some of these creatures that have kind of fallen into creepypasta, especially like the Black-Eyed Children and some of the other ones, and we can get into like tulpas and things like that, of where thought forms, enough people believe in them, believe in something that could you birth it into existence. But yeah, I think the rake is probably a new word for I would think something that falls in line with almost Wendigo-ish like, because that's one of the traits of a Wendigo is they just continue to grow and they're distorted and it sounds horrifying. Or a Japanese yokai. A Japanese yokai. Because they have some kooky ones, like I think one of their versions of a vampire is a real lady. She's alive. She's not dead. She's not undead. I think she's more of like cursed. And she's fine during the day when she's awake, but when she falls asleep, her head detaches from her body, and and it's nothing but guts from the base of her neck out, and she floats around, sucking like life energy off of people. Um, so yeah, and there is another yokai that's got an extremely long neck that grows. So it kind of reminds you of that too. And so Hexa says, "Oh, you haven't been to Griffith Park if you think no human can bend that way." Come on, StreamYard. Okay, so Akia says, "I know what this is." So okay, tell me, what is it? Are we talking about the Beast of Griffith Park still? Oh, is Alan here? Hey, Alan. Yeah, there's Alan. Hello, Alan. How are you? So glad you stopped by. We're about to wrap it up, unfortunately, but you can always catch us on a replay. I think I would agree with you. So Akia says, I imagine Griffith J. Griffith probably looks a lot like Foghorn Leghorn. I tell you, son. Okay, and then Akia says, Odd Mother, we are taking you to Griffith Park when you're here. It's the old zoo. Yes, and I understand the old zoo is supposed to be super haunted. The old zoo, and you can, let's see, walk into the old large mammal enclosures. Ooh, that would be cool. We could get some really cool footage out there. Could you imagine? And then Hexa says, honestly, being that they are California natives, Griffith Park is one of the coolest and creepiest places of all time, and the observatory up there is really cultish. I bet does it have like a lot of different like reliefs and stuff on it, like weird symbology and stuff on it. For some reason, I would just think it would. All right, and so Jolene says there is an apparent portal to hell at Spider Gate Cemetery in Massachusetts. Cute little cemetery we have visited. Nothing spooky happened, though unfortunately. Oh, though unfortunately, yeah, that's like it. That's art now. I I don't think it's in Massachusetts. The one where the Devil's Chair is. I think it's supposed to be a vortex or portal to hell as well, certain times of the year. And like something will happen to you if you go and sit in the Devil's Chair. I forget where that is. I want to say it's somewhere up in maybe Indiana or something. Oh wow. Okay, so Hexa says when it comes to Griffith Park and the observatory, it's very close to Zool's temple in the first Ghostbusters. You know, I wonder if it was built by what was the architect's son's name? Anyway, it's in my list to cover. Um, to where they his this particular oh my goodness, what is his name? Everybody's heard of him. I can't think right now, but his son was into that kind of stuff, kind of the Aztec build, very concrete, cold modernism. But I would love to see that. That would be very cool. And then Hexa says, Manson, it's almost like we have a second episode coming out about him. Yes, exactly. And that will happen this Thursday. And I think it's kind of cool that what I cover tonight just kind of coincided with the fact that we are covering the Manson family. Don't miss that. It'll be this coming up Thursday, our normal podcast. You can't sit with us. And you can also find us on Spotify and Spreaker. And then Jolene says Charles Manson shouldn't have been sent to prison. Psych ward would have been more fitting. Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. Um, I know on like a general and very specific level, he didn't kill anyone, but you do kind of wonder he had to have had some hand in some of it. Getting him worked up into that frenzy. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that a psych probably would be a better situation for him. And Joshua's here. Joshua says, "Good evening, my creepy peoples." And he is the hashtag supervillain next door. Mike, we were talking about this movie not too, I think it was the last podcast, our last podcast, which was past Thursday, not this past Thursday, but Thursday before. One of my absolute favorite movies, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And if you guys have not seen it, it's really worth the watch. It's really good, kind of the alternate version of what could have happened with the Manson family and the murder of Sharon Tate. It's very, very good. We are a culty kind of place. Yeah, I think that's the reason. It's just so cool around there. That and like Upper Maine and Massachusetts and around those areas, kind of cold and H.P. Lovecrafty and Haunting of Connecticut type feel up there. I love Massachusetts. It's a really cool place. And Calvin said loved it. Well, I'm so glad, Calvin. I hope you guys liked it. I hope my stream was a little smoother this time. I won't know until I go back and look at it. But hopefully, whoever's eating up my bandwidth, they're in bed and asleep. And this will depend on whether I continue to go live at 11 or go back to my 10 o'clock time frame. And Josh says, shit, my timing is horrible. And I shared this one too. Well, look, you can always go back and hit the replay. It's not like TikTok or Instagram to where it goes away after a little while. We'll be here for forever, in memoriam. And Kisa says, interesting. Well, good. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. All right. Let me see. Because, oh my gosh, you guys have just been so talkative. Hi, Vice. How are you? I'm so glad you stopped by. And Alexa says, there's a Winnebago in Griffith Park. Someone with that chick's beard makeup who lives in the Black Forest of Colorado. No. Oh my goodness, that's funny. It wasn't letting you comment. I know it was being kind of slow on this end, but Lord, I hope it wasn't problems with the stream and just maybe just Facebook shenanery and stupidness. And then Nadine says, we've got a devil's chair in Saratoga, New York. Supposedly portal time travel. That's cool. That's cool. haven't heard about that one. I'll have to look that up, Nadine. All right, Kisa, you're going to have to let me know about this one. There is a Devil's Rocking Chair in Cedartown, Georgia, I think. Now, there is also a Devil's some other body part in Tallapoosa. And this is really cool. I don't know if I would do it because I'm not super claustrophobic, but I think I would be claustrophobic in this particular instance. And it is basically an underwater cave that you have to swim into. And then once you, like, it's just enough to like hold your breath. If you're good at holding your breath, you can swim back to the cave that actually opens up. And it's supposed to be like a big party place somewhere in Tallapoosa, in one of those, I guess, I don't want to say river, but one of those streams up there. Someone was telling me about that used to live up in that area, and it was referred to as the Devil's something or another, but I can't remember. Yeah, you'll have to tell me about this. The Devil's Rocking Chair. Interesting. And then Calvin says there was a demon house here in Indiana. Zach Baggins bought it and tore it down and buried it. What? Why? He's always harassing ghosts in one way or another. And then John says, I'm glad they didn't kill Manson. He was such an entertaining guy. They should have David Letterman interview him. Well, luckily I don't think they could really prosecute him to that extent because technically he didn't lay hands on anybody with related to the two murders. Now his complicity with it and his being linked to it completely different. But yeah, he was a character. Oh my word. And then Nadine says Massachusetts is awesome. Yes, Massachusetts. Yes, and I love it, Kisa. She says we are a bunch of chatty weirdos. I wouldn't have it any other way at all. Okay, so Kisa says, yeah, it's in Cave Springs. I was just up in Cave Springs not too long ago. They've got that really cool. The cave was closed up there that you can go to at that park. But it was a neat place. It was a neat place. Okay, I'm going to try to pronounce this, John, as I can. Hold on. Let me get this to come up. It's super slow. All right. In the Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio, there's a place they call Helltown because of all the creepy stories from there. I'll have to look that up. That I don't think I know anything about that place. I'll definitely have to look that up. So it is. It's Devil's Rocking Chair is in Cave Springs. I'll check that out. And then Paul says Sullivan's Hollow is full of unique or unquiet spirits here in Mississippi. I bet there are a lot of ghosts in Mississippi too. Massachusetts is how it's pronounced. I think I get it pretty well for a Southern girl. Massachusetts. Massachusetts. My stepfather's from there. So all right, guys. Well, I really enjoyed that, and I really appreciate you guys coming in and having fun with this. This was a lot of fun. I think we might cover cryptids or something next time. So I want to work us up to spooky season, because we're going to be covering some stuff I haven't covered yet. And eventually, before spooky season gets here, we are going to cover the infamous boogeyman. We've got to cover the boogeyman. So we'll be doing that soon. I just got to plan it out so that we cover that right up at spooky season. I think it would be good. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining me. Again, let everybody know. I'm assuming this coming up Wednesday, there will be Chit Chat with Akia. And then, of course, Thursday will be You Can't Sit With Us podcast. And we'll be covering part 2 of the Manson family. And maybe we'll play a little bit more of Manson's music, too, if we can get by with it. And then that following night will be Roots Bleed Red. So you guys have a great rest of the week and coming weekend. And we will see you back here Friday after next. Let's see. Where do I need to be? I need to be right here. Pleasant nightmares, everybody. Bye.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.